Hello, hi. Uh, Thank you for joining me this afternoon. The time is about 3 to 4, so I'm going to wait just a couple of seconds before I go ahead and get started. Um, this is going to be the last class we do this semester, so I really hope in my heart that you all have had fun participating with this semester. Um, yeah, so this week is going to be a little bit like last week and the week before. We are going to still be working on um, plow pose, and maybe we add a little bit more meditation this week, take out some of the end bits and allow for a little bit longer in the meditation space, as these could be stressful times for a lot of us going into the winter. So a little bit of extra time to really look inward and think about ourselves and our motivations, and remembering to take care of ourselves as we move into the winter months. So yeah, we'll get started here just in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, please feel free to start working on your yoga breathing. We can all work on it together. And we're going to start in a mountain position, so we can either stay in lotus, such as I am, or we can go rise to mountain and begin working on that yoga breath. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I will rise to join us all in a mountain. Now, the theme for today's practice is a little bit different. I really want to instill the idea of sometimes there are things in our life that we cannot change, and we have to remember that those things aren't something worth stressing about over. We can maybe handle how we react to them, or how we handle them depending on the outcome, but not specifically about how to change them. So that's the theme. We'll revisit that in a little bit towards the end of this practice. We're going to go ahead and move into our sun salutations, start warming up our bodies, and prepare for our bulk flow. So once we're rooted in mountain, our feet about hip-ish distance apart, our body nice and tall, our shoulders relaxed, our neck is loose. We inhale, arms go up towards the ceiling. Exhale, we swan dive. We forward fold, reaching down towards the floor. We inhale to lift into our monkey, flat backs here. We exhale, we fold all the way down, walking our hands or feet out, coming into that first downward facing dog. We shift our weight forward, coming into our plank. We can be in high plank or we can be in kneeling plank. It's not particularly important which version we're in. We rotate those elbows in, we chaturanga down, come all the way down towards the floor, release our toes off the ground, and press up into our upward facing dog. We pull our shoulders away from our ears and try to push our pelvis down towards the ground, really flexating our spine, activating our glutes, opening up the front half of our body. We open our knees, press our hips back, and slip into child's pose. Arms come out in front of us. Knowing that child's pose is a resting position, and if at any point during this practice we want to take just a second and recuperate, we can come into child's pose and just breathe, catch ourselves, find our yoga breath yet again, and then rejoin us wherever we are. We shift up as we inhale, coming into our tabletop position. Wrists in line with our shoulders, knees with our hips. We tuck our toes into the ground, lift our hips, straighten our legs, and press into downward facing dog. We'll walk our hands and feet together, coming back into that forward fold. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale to fold. Inhale to reverse swan dive and return into our mountain and release. Maybe shaking our wrists and ankles just a little bit. Knowing the way that we're going to do this is we're going to do one more together, and then we're going to do a couple kind of independently at the pace of our own breathing, kind of just to get a flow and find your own pace. So finding our root, finding our stability here. We go again. Inhale, arms go up. Exhale, fold. Inhale to lift. Exhale, we fold, bend our knees a smidge and walk those hands out, coming into downward facing dog. Inhale to come forward into our plank of choice. We can be high or low. Rotate the elbows in, chaturanga, come down, release our toes. Inhale, come up into upward facing dog. Exhale, we press back into that child's pose. Inhale, we come up back to our tabletop. Adjusting as needed. Toes tuck under as we exhale, hips lift. On that next exhale, we'll walk our hands and feet together. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale to fold. Inhale to reverse swan dive and come all the way back up. And release. Alrighty, so these next couple of sun salutations, I'm going to remain silent. And we're just going to kind of flow through at our own pace, take about 5 minutes here, and get into our own flow, kind of starting to be aware of how our body is feeling, and if there's any strange tensions or any tightness we might be feeling with certain parts of our body, trying to keep that in mind and knowing that maybe we need to adjust and make modifications for different movements that we do in this practice to alleviate some stress on those different body parts. Knowing that we can kind of move at the pace that I'm going to be going at, but I'm encouraging everybody to kind of flow at their own pace and be in their own state of flow as we continue to move through these sun salutations. So whenever we're ready, we'll find that mountain and go ahead and get started. knowing we can get water whenever we need to, knowing that that is not off limits. Finishing up that last sun salutation wherever we are. I'll wait just a couple of seconds for us to all meet here. Don't rush, go through at your own pace, and we'll meet back in mountain. If we find ourselves here a little early, we can refine that yoga breath, get a little bit of water, maybe rolling our neck a little bit too. Alrighty, hopefully that was good, hopefully we're feeling good, and that kind of free-form bit wasn't too difficult. We're going to move into the bulk of our flow, and as we move through this, I'm going to have to adjust a little bit to make sure I'm in camera shot, to try to make it as easy to follow as possible. So if I kind of adjust mid-pose, don't worry about it, stay where we are, and I'll be right back in it in a second. I'm just trying to make it a little bit easier for everybody who's watching. So from our mountain position, we're going to first move into Warrior One. This is our first movement, so we'll take our left leg comes forward, right leg shoots back. We're bouncing so that our heel is not all the way reaching the ground, just kind of floating above the ground. We have a nice bend in our front left leg here. Maybe not 90 degrees, but a nice bend, and our arms shoot up, facing the direction of our left leg, making sure our entire upper body is facing that direction, including our hips. It's easy to have those hips tilt out this way. We want to really focus on keeping them in line with our front leg. Next exhale, we'll open up into Warrior Two. Stance gets a little bit longer. The knife edge of our back leg, which in this case is our right, is going to line up with our front leg heel here. The bend in our left leg gets a little bit deeper, and our stance gets about 4.5 to 5 feet wide, reaching towards the opposite sides of the space that we're in right now. Still breathing, maintaining that yoga breath. We'll take that forward hand, so for me that's my left, and rotate it so palm comes face up. And we'll take our reverse warrior and hinge down the back of that right leg, staying in that same plane of motion, fighting the urge to really slop forward. We want to stay in that single plane that we were in Warrior Two. We also want to make sure we keep that big, nice bend in our front left leg. It can be a little bit easy to slip out of it in reverse warrior. On the next inhale, we'll lift back up into Warrior Two, and we'll rainbow and pivot and come down and frame that front left leg. Our right leg, our foot's going to unrotate, so it's kind of like we're in Warrior One. And we're going to shoot that left leg back and come into a downward facing dog. From this downward facing dog, we're going to shift and come into our plank of choice. I'm going to adjust here. And we're going to take our chaturanga. We're going to come all the way down, release ourselves, bring our hands in a little bit tighter, maybe drop down to our forearms and lift up into Sphinx. Sort of like upward facing dog, but a little bit lower. Kind of isolating the upper back. Similar idea though. Slowly releasing, coming back down. We'll open our hips here and press back into child's pose, right from our Sphinx. Holding this child's pose just for a second. If we want, we can attempt to come into hero's pose, which is pretty similar to child's pose. We just kind of lift up. Maybe open our stance a little bit. And sit back between our legs, keeping our upper body very long and tall. This might be a little bit uncomfortable. If this is the case and we still want to try hero's pose, we can take our hands into fists, put them just behind our glutes, and extend our arms kind of to the comfortable position that we can comfortably stay at. Regardless of child's or hero's pose, we'll come forward into our tabletop position. And we're going to thread the needle on both sides here. So once we have a nice sturdy tabletop, I'm going to adjust this way. We're going to start with our right hand. We're going to take that right arm and stick it through the gap on our left side and drive that shoulder down to the ground as we reach out with our right arm. Keeping our glutes up in the air, keeping our left palm pressed into the ground to kind of keep the pressure off of our head. Next inhale, we lift out. We do the same thing on the other side, so I'm just shifting. Same idea, weight in the right palm, glutes still lifted. Next inhale, we lift on out of that. Coming back to our tabletop position, and we're going to take a couple of cat-cows. So I'm going to adjust again just to make that easier to see. So making the point clear again, wrists in line with our shoulders, knees in line with our hips to straight line up. And we're going to flexate through a couple of cat-cows. So to go into cow, we inhale as we arch our back downward. And exhale into our cat as we curve the spine the other way, tucking our pelvis in towards our belly button, chin towards our chest. Inhaling into our cow. And back into our cat. Let's do 2 more of each here. Moving nice and slow. Then we'll return to our tabletop position, nice and relaxed. From our tabletop, we will tuck our toes under, extend those legs, and lift our hips to come into a downward facing dog. We'll lift that left leg up here nice and tall, and we'll shift and tuck it through as we come into our pigeon. So we'll bring it in towards that left elbow, drive it out, cross and drop. Wiggle that right leg back as we come down on the face side of our foot, the top half. And we can stay right here. If we want to go a little bit deeper, we can come down to our forearms, provided we keep our neck with our spine. We don't want to just collapse our head. We want to make sure we keep it in line with our spine. Our neck is still part of our spine, and we don't want to overdo, bend, curve our spine too much, so why would we do the same thing with our neck? We got a lot of mobility today. We can come all the way down, or as far as our body will let us go. This is the limit for me today. Holding here for one more breath. Next inhale, we'll lift up from wherever we are, back to our palms. Tuck those right toes under. Give them a firm plant in the ground, and using the stability in our 3 planted limbs, we'll lift that right leg up and shoot ourselves off of that front left leg. Going right into it, lifting it up one more time, and stepping it through nice and tightly for a low lunge. We'll bounce that right leg up to meet the left. I'm going to wiggle myself back. And we're going to hang in this forward fold for just a second. If we want to take our arms and grasp at the elbows to allow ourselves to drift a little bit deeper, that could be a nice move. If we want to grasp behind the ankles too, we can allow ourselves to pull our chest closer to our thighs. Still breathing. Really feeling the stretch in our hamstrings here. Maybe our legs are shaking a little bit. If we've grasped our elbows or our ankles, we'll release them. Just go back to dangling, and we'll lift halfway for our monkey. Flat, straight backs here. We'll fold again. Inhale, reverse swan dive. And release. That's our first half here. We got to do the same thing for the right side. And then we're going to do a little bit of balance. Seeing as we have the flexibility today, it seems like today's a little bit more on flexibility than other days. So we'll try dancer as opposed to balancing half moon from last week. Take a second, assess how our body's feeling. Make sure we're doing okay. Trying to focus on being in the present right here, not being distracted by the outside or other factors in the world. And when we're ready, we're going to go on to the right side. So again, I'm just adjusting, trying to make it a little bit easier. We'll take that right leg, bring that right leg forward. Left leg shoots back, heel reaches down towards the ground, and we got a decent sized bend in that front leg. We'll shoot our arms up as we keep our entire upper body from the hips onward, in line with that front left leg. We'll hold this for warrior one. Next exhale, we'll open into warrior two. Stance gets nice and wide. Remembering we have that big deep bend in that front leg, which is our right leg this time. And our heel is lined up with the knife edge of our back leg. And we're staying in that single plane of motion, not kind of rocking back or forward. We're standing nice and tall still. Going into reverse warrior, we'll take our right arm, which is forward, rotate palm face up, and we'll hinge down the back of our left leg. Staying in that single plane of motion still, trying really hard not to fall out of it. Keeping that big bend in that right leg, trying to stay just above the ankle. Next inhale, we'll come back to warrior two. And on the exhale, we'll rainbow and frame our right leg. We'll shoot that right leg back, coming into a downward facing dog. Here's where I will adjust so we can all be on the same page. Shifting forward, coming into our high plank, elbows rotate inward. We chaturanga, come down, release the tops of our feet, drop our forearms down, and we'll lift up into our Sphinx. Coming down, releasing, opening our knees and pressing back into child's pose. If we do want to go to hero's pose, take child's pose for just a second before we switch into it. If we're going to go into hero's pose, now is a decent time. We can come into it however we like, knowing we can again use our fists to help lift. If coming right into hero's pose is not something in our repertoire today, regardless of child's or hero's pose, we'll lift up and come forward into a tabletop. We're going to thread the needle again, and then we're going to do a couple more cat-cows. It's going to be familiar. This time we will start with the left arm though, so left arm comes up and in through the hole between our right leg and right arm. Next inhale, we'll lift out of it. And on that same exhale, we'll drive our right arm through this time. On that next inhale, we'll lift out. Finding our peace right here in our tabletop position, nice and steady. We'll go into a couple of cat-cows here. Taking one more of each. Returning back to that stable tabletop position. We'll tuck our toes under, our hips lift. We come into our downward facing dog. This time our right leg is going to shoot up nice and tall. As we shift and start to bring it through, we'll bring it towards that right elbow, cross the body, and drop for our pigeon. Bringing that left leg down, wiggling the left leg back. Tops of the foot goes in the ground there. Remember, we could stay here, we can come down to our forearms or go even lower, provided we keep our neck in line with our spine. Maintaining that single long body, even when bent a little funny, just like this. On that next inhale, we'll lift back up to the fully arm extended here. We'll tuck those left toes under, extend that leg up, and shoot the right leg back, lift it all the way. And then shift again, tuck it through for a low lunge. From here, we'll bring that left leg up to meet the right for a forward fold. And in this forward fold, we're again just going to dangle here for a second or so, kind of find ourselves nice and relaxed, knowing we can again grasp our elbows or grasp behind the ankles, whatever is better feeling for us today. Holding here for one more inhale and exhale. And on that next inhale, we'll lift into our monkey. And on the exhale, we'll fold. Inhale, we'll take our reverse swan dive and come back and release down to our center. Finding our peace. Again, taking just a second to grab a little bit of water, and we'll do a balancing pose before doing a little bit of seated movement and moving into plow and then finishing up. Taking a second to stretch ourselves just a little bit, make sure everything's feeling okay. And when we're ready, just take a second and just watch. Dancer's a little bit strange, and we haven't done it this semester, but I promise it's fun. I really hope everything fits on the screen here. It's a little bit difficult. So we have options, and the way we move into it, we'll start by taking one leg, in this case it's my right, and grabbing the top side of the foot with our same arm, kind of driving that knee towards the ground as if we were standing tall. And we're going to lift that left arm up now, parallel to the ear. And as we start to hinge, we'll find our balance, maybe focusing on something fun on the floor. We might decide to rotate the direction of our palm to allow us to lift a little bit higher. And here we are. This is Dancer. This is where we should be, our final little movement here. And we just hold to balance. That's what we're doing. Slipped a little bit there, sorry. That is how we're going to do it. So we'll do it again. We'll do one on each side, make sure we're feeling comfortable with it and everything's feeling good. So I'll start with the left this time. So again, knowing we can stop at any point, any one of these movements, we can just start here, we can hold it here, we can start to hinge, we can just come this far, we can really get into it. It is personal preference, whatever feels good for us today. So option one, part one, we lift, palm of the hand grasps the top of the foot. We drive that thigh down into the ground. We lift that right arm up. We start to hinge. We keep hinging, keep hinging. We might want to rotate our hand towards the other side and start to really lift into that dancer. We just hold wherever we are. Maybe 5 good inhales and exhales. Slowly lifting out of it, finding our balance and releasing. We do the same thing on the other side if we didn't do it already. If we already did it, just take a second and breathe. If we are new to this one, we're just going to take our right leg, grasp it here. We're going to lift that left arm up. And we're going to start to hinge our way out, finding our balance. Maybe rotating our hand towards the other side. And we hold just wherever we are. Holding. I'm going to slip out of it. That's okay. Keep holding. One more inhale and exhale. Slowly coming out of that dancer, finding our peace. Getting just a wee bit of water, making sure we're staying hydrated, even though it's getting a little bit colder. Not that I've been outside much this semester. Alrighty. Now we gotta make our way down to our glutes. We're gonna take a Mulavasana squat, so feet a little bit wider than hip distance, hands come in towards our center. We bring our body all the way down. Waist up stays very tall. We hold here. Holding for one more inhale and exhale. On that next exhale, we'll release, come down onto our glutes, swing our legs out in front of us, and find our way to our staff position, sitting nice and tall, very long here. From our staff, we're going to hinge forward, so we'll sit nice and tall. Inhale, and as we exhale, we'll reach out towards our ankles, going as far as we possibly can. Driving ourselves down. If we want to go a little bit deeper, we can inhale here. And as we exhale, we reach a little bit further, which might allow us to go a little bit further than we could go before. A little secret technique. On that next exhale, we'll release. Coming back to our staff. We will bring our legs together, hold them nice and tight. And we're going to try to drive and open our hips, keeping all of our toes and heel and the ball of our feet pressed together, really trying to bring both knees down to an equilibrium point. Can open that stance a little bit longer here. If we start to come down, we want to try to keep our feet pressed together and use our abs to let us come down very slowly. I've had a little bit of difficulty with it the past couple weeks. It is not the easiest movement. Our body will be shaken a good bit. Coming down as slowly as we can. I can't do it myself this week. That's okay. I'm just going to shift and adjust. Once we're down on the ground, we'll hug our legs in towards our body like a fetal position. Bring them in nice and tight, really trying to pull our tailbone off the ground, feeling this stretch in our glutes. Kind of rocking back and forth. We're going to move into our plow, seeing as we already pigeoned. We've already given those legs an extra stretch. We're going to change it up, move right into plow before we start to wind down. So I'm going to adjust. This week I'm only going to do legs up the wall for the duration. So I'm going to demo plow, but then I'm going to switch to legs up the wall. So if plow is not our favorite pose, we can do legs up the wall, and I'll demonstrate that in just a second. So if we're going into plow, we're going to come down flat on our backs, have our legs bent up kind of a little bit. Prepping ourselves by doing a glute bridge, pressing up nice and tall, feeling strong in our triceps here. Coming down, we'll tuck our legs up, kind of like in that fetal position. Having our hands ready to support our back, we'll press up, coming into a shoulder stand, all the way nice and tall, and we'll drive those legs down very slowly, finding the support of our body, keeping the weight off of our neck and in our shoulders, really feeling the stretch all along our back here. We want to keep our gaze focused up on the ceiling. We don't want to be rotating our head here. We can stay in plow. We can hold this as long as it feels good. We can slip out or go again. If we rather want to do legs up the wall, we'll press ourselves very close to a wall. For me, it's going to be this door, getting our glutes as close as possible. And we're just going to extend those legs up like we're sitting in staff position, nice and long here, just like this. Holding either plow or our legs on the wall for just another couple of breaths. And on that next exhale, we'll release either pose that we're in. We'll come back down, lying right on the ground here. And we're going to take a spinal twist and move into our Shavasana, or our final resting place, where we'll take a little bit longer of a meditation this week to kind of prepare ourselves mentally for the winter months. So, from our plow or legs at the wall, we're back lying on the ground, kind of flat here. We'll take that right leg, lift that right leg up to a parallel position. We'll rotate it across our body, and try to drop it down, opening our arms up to a wide T shape. Now, if we're trying to figure out the decision whether to bring our knee all the way down or leave that shoulder, the right shoulder, into the ground here, we want to keep the shoulder down. That's the more important part of this pose. Bringing that leg all the way across is not important. Gravity's working with it, whereas our body is working against us with that shoulder, trying to rotate all the way across. holding for another couple of breaths. Slowly unrotating, bringing that leg up, unrotating our hips, switching legs to extend that right leg, left leg comes across. We drop it out. Same idea. We want to keep that left shoulder down before we consider bringing that left knee down. The shoulder is the more important piece here. Again, we'll hold this for a few more breaths. Slowly coming out of it. Extending that left leg out to meet the right. Now I'm going to transition into a lotus position. However, we can stay lying down here relaxed, kind of at peace in Shavasana. It is personal preference. I personally just like lotus a little bit better. Now I'm going to monologue here for a little bit before I just kind of let us focus in our space for a minute. So as we start to wind down either lotus or Shavasana, we get relaxed, make sure there's no tenseness anywhere in our body. Our neck is loose, our shoulders are loose. We're still sitting tall. Our breathing slows down. We reflect on this practice for a moment. Reflect how we're feeling in this moment. Hopefully we're feeling positively about ourselves. And knowing that it is okay to not be positive all the time. I'm certain some of us might be struggling in different ways. And knowing that's okay. If we relay it back to our theme for today, understanding that there are certain things that we have absolutely no power over, and accepting them for what they are. Maybe making plans for however many different ways those unchangeable events can go, but not getting hung up on the idea that maybe us as an individual has an ability to change those things. Knowing that if we are struggling for whatever reason, it will get better, and there are people out there who care about you. Everyone here in the space is loved. Everyone outside and not in the space is also loved. For some people, the winter months can be very stressful, even though they're supposed to be a sign of joy. Knowing that if maybe one of us is one of those people, or are one of those people, that it's okay. We can do the best we can to handle difficult times, but knowing that all of us have people in our lives, if no one else other than myself, that is willing to hear you out and talk about it if one of us is struggling. Not dwelling on things in the past or what might happen in the future. Trying to just exist in the present and doing the best we can with what we have where we are. Finding our peace just for a second, to just focus on our breathing and try to shut off our brain if possible. If turning off our brain is an inability, something we can't do right now, maybe try to imagine a little ball of light just underneath the skin somewhere and imagine it traveling through our body to different places. Maybe it starts in the fingers and travels through our arms, up into our shoulders and maybe into our chest. And wherever else it might go. Or of course focus on our breathing. slowly starting to wake up our body, adjusting ourselves to come back to the present for a moment. We can stay in our resting if we choose. I just have closing thoughts I want to get across. Hopefully this practice has been beneficial to everyone who's seen it or seen any practice this semester. I know for myself, this semester has been very hard for me. And this is a place where I can really kind of relax and try to just escape it all for a little bit. If you know someone who's struggling, make sure to reach out to them. Everyone needs a friend sometimes. And, we can be that for somebody. I hope this practice and this semester has been good to you, and if nothing else, this was just a little bit of a break from all the other junk going on in the world right now. With that, I will upload this video and maybe a couple weeks of previous videos onto the YouTube very soon, if they're not already there. And I wish you each one of you, a very happy winter break. Good luck on finals. Good luck on any other thing happening in your life. Thank you so much for allowing me to be an instructor for you all this semester. And hopefully I might see some of you all in person in January. Again, thank you, and I'll see you next time.